Hey,
How
sweet.
are you?
How we doing? How you doing?
Good, man. Sweaty cup.
Yeah, check this out. I also want to show you this. I just got this.
Oh, ah,
Woo! Man,
I just got my plain black tea on today.
this
That
is
should fit
this was
here.
like this was a targeted ad. This was like I was
Yeah,
scrolling on Instagram and like the t-shirt with this graphic. I was like, ah, yes.
yeah.
Like,
That's the one, man.
have you ever been targeted on and then like convincingly targeted and bought
Yeah.
something?
Oh, by like, oh yeah, particular items. Yeah, absolutely.
That's fine. What were you targeted for?
Lately, it's been there was some vintage items as well, but lately it's been like just more fight gear, just because I guess that's what I'm searching for.
Okay. Yeah, you ready to have some fun?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sick. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Two Degrees podcast. Haven't done this in a minute. I'm kind of changing up the format of how I do these interviews because we've also gone live, if you didn't know. We're doing shows out of Comedy Bar in Toronto, Comedy Bar Bloor. Every second Wednesday of the month, we're bringing out guests. I've already brought on some more Smallwood, actor, screenwriter, producer. I've also brought on Jason Bradley, who is formerly the voice of DW from the show Arthur. And today's guest for the podcast, we're going to have him out next month at our Two Degrees Live. And everybody, it's Chef Hiram. How you doing, Chef? How's it
Sure.
going?
How
I'm
are you?
doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm so glad that you had time to do this
Oh no,
and
thank
that
you for
you're going to
having
come
me.
out as well. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that, man. Thank you for having me, man. It's honestly a pleasure.
Love you. So I guess let's start with so you're a chef, you're out of Bunso, Toronto.
Hmm.
And with that, so right now it's just a pop-up thing that you guys do with other locations, or are you planning on having your own brick and mortar anytime soon?
Correct. Actually, you know what? That question came up with my, and she's like, "What are we? Are we a catering company? Are we a pop-up?" And I was like, "I don't know." Right? But it was like before when I first started, it was a pop-up concept, and then I started doing like private dinners with like, in-home like Kamayan dinners, and then different things. And one of my best friends, when I told him, I got stumped on the question of like, "What are we?" And then he asked me in a different tonality. He's like, "What is bunso?" I was like,
Hmm.
well, I don't know, man. We operate out of food trucks. We operate out of pop-ups. He stopped and he looked at me. He's like, there you go. Bunso.
Yeah,
Aspects of culinary. Right.
interesting.
So we're kind of all around, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, with the title, the name Bunso,
Hmm.
meaning the youngest,
Correct.
are you the youngest in your family?
Yeah, that was my nickname growing up with my family.
Okay, so then
Yeah,
it's a self-title then. This is you. This restaurant is
absolutely.
there.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the story behind Bunso and what I explained to everybody at the pop-ups, come across somebody that asked, like you said, it is the youngest child, right? And the philosophy that I know about the youngest child. It doesn't matter what race you are, your background. The youngest child gets everything that they want. The misconception that people get with that philosophy is like, yes, we can get everything that we want. However, it's our responsibility to give back the most,
Mm,
right? And me personally, like, I didn't get necessarily everything I wanted when I grow up, like at being the youngest. Like I didn't really get raised in like, a silver spoon in the mouth and all that stuff. But the one thing that I did get spoiled with was, what do you want for dinner? What do you want for breakfast? Right. So it was my parents always cooked whatever I was. Oh, what do you want? Sinigang,
mm,
or papaitan, or like mom's like pork adobo because they both my parents have a different style of like cooking, and some of them have like the same recipes but like different styles of how they cook it, right? So I was very particular about it on who cooks it and all this other stuff, and I always got it, and I was grateful for that, right? So like my menu is always based on like what my parents fed me, and also I cook it in a sense of like through my experience of years in the industry as well, right? So
mm.
it'll be my mom's recipe to the T, but then the cooking tech different restaurant, right?
Mm.
So it kind of just gives me that creative outlet, and that's what Bunso is to me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned pork adobo. Pork
Yes.
or chicken adobo?
Oh, for the sake, you know what? For me, it's chicken. Like it's
Hmm.
always like a go-to for chicken. Like I didn't don't get me wrong, I am like a pork like connoisseur, right?
Yeah.
But there's just something about the pork adobo where it's just like it does get to like a like there's a point where I love pork, but then there's that fatty like
That's the
flavor.
best part.
I know, and that's the thing, and I love that part. But I'm like, once it mixes in with like the adobo, like broth and all that stuff, I'm kind of like, oh, now it's just like I just taste oil,
Hmm.
like
Fair.
which like sometimes it's for me at least it's unappealing, right? And the people out there too. A lot of people are surprisingly throughout the years like don't like pork, and
Hmm.
I've lost some friendships over not but like, it's I also tailor it to a lot of people as well too. Chicken is like a protein that a lot of people are very comfortable with too, right?
Yeah. So
So
now you brought up like it being it's the oil and yeah, that's the reason why I like it and
mhm.
it can get overwhelming. Now with that, one of the highest, I guess, would you call it a disease, illnesses that a lot of Filipinos are going through, especially at our age now, gout.
Oh man, I have gout. Like that's like since I've become like a father, like it just like triggered even more. And then like when we go to like a gathering, right? So we're like comparing meds and all that. Like,
Oh my goodness.
you know,
So, is there a way to, I guess, make Filipino food healthier then, so it's still just as enjoyable to the masses without having to worry about it being such a high caloric food that people are
absolutely.
avoiding?
Yes, absolutely. And all it really takes is just a smaller portion.
Mm.
Like it just like I'm not like an expert on like, but it's just smaller dosages. Like for me, like I don't even get triggered with the gout with like pork. It's more so red meats for me, right? Like
Mm.
beef or like, like intestine meat, like tripe and all that stuff. Which, it sucks because I love tripe. I kind of risk it all for tripe sometimes. But yeah, it's just smaller dosages, right? Like in growing up in a Filipino like household, like you're not getting portion. You get like a big bowl of like food and it's served family style and you're just going away at it. Like, they're always like in a sense almost like force feeding you. They're like, oh, eat more, eat more, eat more. Like and they'll be the ones like loading up your plate, right? And I guess like that's kind of like for me, that was kind of the trigger for how it happened with myself,
Yeah.
right? Not blaming my family or anything. I could be like, no, I'm good. Like, but no, I'm
So
like, yeah, get more food.
if you were to, I don't know if you've put thought into it, I haven't for sure, but do you think that there's something to be said about that kind of portioning, I guess, where it's like, what does it mean that you're getting more food? What does it mean that you're getting, or is there even a proper amount of food that you're supposed to get at a serving?
I mean, it's hard to say because Filipino cuisine is just like all hands on deck, right? And it's you don't really notice it until at least for me with my experience in the industry and all that, you don't really see it, right? But like when you go to family parties, you have the I guess like the old fashioned Filipinos, right? The old school Filipino titas, titos, lolos, and lolas, where they'll judge the food. Like they'll judge the party based on the food. They're like, it's not enough food. It's not enough
Mhm.
food. Or it's just, you know what I mean? And when you have like a big amount of food, they're like, oh, that's perfect. You know what I mean? But then everybody's like really, home. In a sense, I'm like, yeah, it's beautiful in a way where it's just like, that's just how we grew up. It's like a Filipino thing to be like, but on a health perspective, I'm just like, no, that's like a lot of food, man. Like, that's way too much. And that's just me, like the chef in me thinking, I'm like, I think of like food costs, like you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it's a beautiful thing to have like food for people to take home. I think that's a beautiful thing. But again, like I said, if it's a small party, 10, 15 people, but you're feeding like a village at that point, it's just really in moderation. It's just taking more into consideration how much people can really eat, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
because now, so I've been to a few Filipino restaurants, and these Filipino restaurants are trying to bring the Filipino food experience to more of a standard culinary standard. and
Yes.
they're chasing like the Michelin star and stuff like
Yep.
that. But then I'll go to this restaurant and I'm gonna leave hungry.
Hmm.
Well, then now it's like, oh, that's not really my Filipino experience because
Yeah.
I'm full after a Filipino meal. And it's like,
Yeah.
cool, I've tasted these flavors, but it's not really a Filipino experience, in my opinion.
Right.
So is there a balance, or how then should Filipino chefs approach chasing that culinary standard?
Hmm. Um, for in my perspective at least, right? And I don't knock any restaurants making it that elevated kind of experience, right? I mean, there's a fine line there where people don't get like when you go to a higher end restaurant, you're paying for the experience, right? It's not even about the portion size. It's more so like service of like how your servers are treating you, or the stories behind all the food. And I think that's a great thing as well too. With Filipino food in particular, it's a little challenging. We have amazing stories behind every single dish that we have. If you see it like a way, if you see it played it in a modern way, regardless, that story is a beautiful thing, right? But for me, in terms of like, and I do take that in consideration as well too, right? I'm like, people have to leave full, but same time, in order for you to leave full, you're gonna have to have like a stacked plate of like all these Filipino foods, right? But the way I did it for Bunso, and it seemed to work because people leave full, right? Um, the first few mistakes I did, the first pop up I did, I was
Mm.
like, I need people to really taste like every single, but then it took too long, right? It was just a long story, but
Yeah.
basically, like, yeah, it was too much. Even the second pop up, I like went down to like maybe like 8 items, 9 items. I even had like a bundesol. Like you try these different ideas on how to incorporate like the Filipino cuisine out there, and it's hard. And then it really got to like the last pop up that I went to, which thank you again for coming by.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it was just like it's just you got to showcase it as is. How do I explain it? Like you got to showcase it as it is. Like I'm not even gonna say that my food is like authentic, like or traditional. You know what I mean? It's just this is just my take on like an introductionary to Filipino food, right? But yeah, small portions. Just make sure that's a filling kind of dish. Like when you really break down like Filipino dishes and look at all the ingredients, I'm like, these are like some heavy, heavy ingredients.
Yeah.
And as long as you like plan it out properly, people can get full, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like you'll see them like, oh, you can have like 8 lumpias for like $5 or something, and then they'll have like pancit for like whatever, and then it's not necessarily giving you that type of. It's kind of just like a scoop and go kind of deal. That's where people get full, right? If
Mm.
you are going to be dining in a place like Bunso, like we want you to have that experience. We also want you to be full. So it's just really creating that story behind every single dish, and kind of more so of an appreciation of it. And then that's the challenge, right? On my end, where it's just like I have to make sure that it's enough. Like the stories are a great story behind the dish, but I need to make sure that you are full as the consumer, right?
Mm.
So yeah, it's still like, and I think that's sorry, I'm kind of just blabbering on here, but
No, it
I
makes
think that's
sense.
I
Yeah.
think that's exactly why Filipino cuisine in general is still like you hear it a lot on social media. It's like, oh yeah, Filipino cuisine is on the rise, right? But I personally think it's just because it's trying to find that median of like, can it be modernized? Do we, you know what I mean? Like it's hard because people are still experimenting in like North America, I would say, with how we should serve Filipino food,
Mm.
right? And a lot of like the arguments that I come across with, like myself, I was born here in Canada. I'm like, oh yeah, we can take this route where it's XYZ, like how I do my pop-ups and stuff. But then you'll have like somebody from the Philippines coming to me and being like, this isn't how we do it in the Philippines.
Yeah.
This isn't like traditional. This isn't that. And obviously it's an argument, but at the same time, like, if someone has the time to argue with me about like what's not, he or she is fighting for what they believe in.
Can you give
And
me an
it's not like,
example of what wasn't Filipino enough for people in the Philippines?
yeah, well, I mean, like my chicken adobo wings, like that I made for the pop-up, right? Like this is like I'm using like starch. I'm making like the adobo like a glaze. and I'm like tossing it in a glaze. They're like, that's not adobo. Adobo is like a stew, man. Like you gotta fucking. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't. I don't know if we can swear, but I'm like, but
Yeah.
you gotta like braise the chicken. You gotta do this and that, and it's not Filipino. It's not very Filipino.
Hmm.
Again, I respect it, and it's there's that fine line. I find that I'm pretty sure you and I are like in the same generation, and then the new school like Filipinos, right? And yeah, we're just caught in the middle trying to figure out like how to make ends meet or you know have peace within this. There's almost like a segregation with like the North American like Filipinos not from Philippines and then the Filipinos from Philippines, right? And it's been challenging, and I just think it's our culture in general, man. We stick by what we believe and we stick by it like very strongly.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, so like with that adobo chicken wings, um, it's still within the realm of adobo, and I find it's not straying away from because like you still get chicken wings in the Philippines, right? So
Right.
just to make it adobo flavored doesn't seem too far-fetched. But what's your opinion on fusion restaurants?
Fusion restaurants. Uh, I mean, off the top of my bat, like off the top of the bat, like I hate the word fusion,
Hmm. Yeah,
but like nothing against it. It's just like just me. It's as a chef, like it's kind of like when people don't like the word moist, like. But fusion, like I think it's a great concept,
hmm.
really and truthfully, right? And it brings out the creativity in a chef or a cook or anybody that's willing to dabble in like the culinary scene, right? This is what I love also about our scene, which is also controversial for some reason. There's no rules. There's no rules to like what you can do in the kitchen, what you can create in the kitchen, right? And I think it's a great concept. It's hard to execute to the people because convincing people that are comfortable with what they're already eating,
Yeah.
right? Even with me and Bunso, like sometimes I'll break out my menu and they'll be like, seems like it would be good, but I don't know. Like, it's like
Hmm.
like even like I don't do fusion, but like I'll do I'll do different things. Like my kare kare is oddly enough, I was just like because I have a nut allergy, so
Yeah.
I here like representing all the people with the allergies,
I was about to say, because like when I saw that, I was like, oh, sunflower seed and not peanut.
hmm
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Some people were just like, oh, that's taken away from like the traditional, like
Yeah.
again, like maybe
That's
just the people that
honestly, I've never thought about that where because I know a handful of Filipinos who have peanut allergies, and I'm like, wow, you can't have kare kare.
yeah, yeah, not me, man. I said I gotta find a way,
Damn. Okay.
you know, and
Honestly,
I guess
this
like
is the first time I guess it made sense to me to have to kind of modify things because to be honest, when I hear people have allergies, I'm like, oh, fuck you.
hey man. And you know what the funny thing? I have a fish allergy too.
Whoa.
Fish allergy. And my dad is a hardcore fisherman, man.
Hmm.
So he's like, oh, there goes our bonding. But
Is it severe to the point where it's like you die if you
yeah, like
push
it's
it?
anaphylactic. Yeah, like if I were to like take a bite at it, like my throat would close. Like I remember I worked at a restaurant,
Yeah.
had a cod croquette and like it was in like a like container. I was like, oh, what is this stuff? And I thought it was like a dessert because I was like, it was like this
Oh
like
no.
creamy. So I took a little like just on my tongue, and I was like, oh no, that tastes like fish. And then I felt like my throat just like slowly like kind of closed. I was like, luckily it was like a little drop, and like I don't know. For me, if I start drinking like a lot of pop, like right as soon as I have like an allergy reaction, it kind of just kills off whatever it is. I'm just saying that's what helped me.
So
But
like ginger ale does have medical properties then. Is
yo, honestly, yeah, man.
that Oh, you have allergies? Here, have a
Yeah,
ginger
man.
ale.
Got ginger ale, Coke, everything, man. Like,
That's funny. Oh man.
anything that fizzes.
Okay. What's then were you always this passionate about Filipino food?
You know what? It took a while,
Hmm.
really and truthfully, because growing up, I mean, I loved my parents cooking. Don't get me wrong. I grew up in a time where, you know, you go to school with your lunch, and if it's Filipino food, people are gonna judge you.
Yeah.
They're gonna look at you and be like, "What the heck is that? What is? Why do you have rice for lunch?" You know. So it was always like I was very like, I don't know. I was very like discouraged to really, you know, show people Filipino food or even like eat it out in public. It was very like to myself at home. You know, I loved it and all that. Like there wasn't even a lot of Filipino restaurants growing up. Like, I grew up in Scarborough, and
Oh
the
yeah.
only
Barrio
the
Fiesta.
yeah,
Yeah.
Juniors or Remilies,
Yeah.
and that was it, man. Like even like
Marcy's, is that the one at VP?
which one? Sorry,
Marcy's?
Marcy's. I
There's
don't remember.
VP and Shepherd. What's at VP and Shepherd?
Ooh, I don't think I've been to that one. Like we only went to Remilies or Jesse Junior. Or my best friend's family used to own Golden Valley.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So like, you know, it was always like the go-to for me as well, right?
Yeah.
And yeah,
The
like those
Cias?
were like, pardon me.
Cias?
Yeah. Ron
Hmm.
Cia, that's my guy, man. That's my boy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, man, that was literally it, man. And even like, and even with that, like, they're not them in particular, but just all the Filipino restaurants in Scarborough. Like, but then like in terms of support, like I grew up with OG Filipino parents, and we'll go to a Filipino spot, we'll be like, oh, we're not gonna buy from there; it's too expensive. They're, you know, they're like,
yeah.
it wasn't even exposed to like other Filipinos. Like they would have all these spots, but most Filipino parents would, unless they have like a party,
Yeah. Hmm.
and then at most they're just gonna be like, I'll buy lechon and then like a tray of your lumpia,
Yeah.
right? So it wasn't enough exposure for me. So then, you know, throughout the years, obviously, I got into the kitchen, and you know, like I worked in different kitchens where there's like, you know, Filipino chefs alongside with me, and I would see some of the cooks just come up with like, they go in their bag, they'll take out like corned beef, and they're like, "Yeah, you want some, man, staff meal?" But everybody still around us that wasn't food. They're like, "Ew, what is that?" But I was like, "Yo, hell yeah, man, I'll fucking eat some." And then, you know, after like throughout the years, I was like, yeah, fuck it, man. Why can't I just bring my own like food that's Filipino food? And like you cook every single day at the same restaurant, right?
Hmm.
I started doing that, and I said, you know, fuck it, man. Like I'm taking more pride into this. Like if people say it's gross, whatever, man. Like I just stopped caring. Like the older that I got, I was just like, oh, whatever, man. Eventually, you know, like more restaurants start exposing um the beauty of Filipino cuisine.
Hmm.
Right? People really start acknowledging it, and now it's kind of like I for years they've been saying, "Oh, Filipinos on the come up." Yeah, you're right. It's still like it hasn't even reached this tipping point. I believe,
Hmm.
right? And we're almost there, man. I now that we're on like that wave, it's not even just because it was just like I feel like all the OGs, like you know the Cias that did Golden Valley or FB Foods or all those, they were a big part of our foundation, right? They still survived.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even with all like the hate, not hate, sorry, but it was just like, you know, the not so much support and all that stuff. They still stuck around,
Yeah.
you know, and they gave inspiration to some people to open up a more leveled up like Filipino spot,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, I genuinely think it's like because it's such a broad like cuisine, we have so many good dishes, different parts of the, we have so much, we have so much on our menu as Filipinos
Yeah.
that we have so much to work with before it can even, like people are always with the generic like, oh yeah, non-Filipinos that they always tell me I love pancit, I love lumpia, you know, and I'm just like it's more than that, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like they got capped right there, right? They
Hmm.
got just knowing it's just lumpia, it's just pancit, chocolate pork that you guys have, right? And it's I don't know, man. There's could be so much more. It's
Okay, so then with that question, give me your
yeah.
top three items that someone should try when they go into a Filipino shop.
Oh man. So number one, papait,
Hmm.
papaitan. Yeah. Um, I'm trying to go like things that people wouldn't necessarily hear all the time either, too, right? And then there's gallos, and the last one, man, lechon kawali. I know that's like pretty common, but it's just like that's just my dish, man. I love
Yeah.
lechon kawali.
No, that's fair too, because like it roast pork is great, but then it's like it's just a different way of doing it, and it's a different crisp I find that you won't find at a Chinese store or at a
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Sweet. What's your go-to, I guess, Filipino comfort food?
Mine would be whew, it's it's hard because I have so many too. But
Yeah.
sinigang is like for me as like I don't know, it's a pretty common dish for everybody to love, but like for me in particular, that was kind of like the first Filipino dish I remember falling in love with as a kid
Sinigang cooked by who?
by my mom,
Mm.
by my mom, man.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's like, there's nothing crazy or special that she does it the way it should be done, like not how it should be, but like she cooks it with the packages,
Yeah.
like she buys like the mamacita, she gets the veggies, I and I get it now. I'm like, yeah, you gotta have some like quick, like some quick meals, you
Yeah.
can't do traditional, which I have, like I've done the traditional way of like, steeping like the tamarind and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
like, yeah, and
Nice.
it's very time consuming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very, very time consuming. That's amazing, but
Yeah.
again, I get why our
I
parents
saw
used it.
that done and I was like, oh, that's why we just use the packages.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then I'm like, oh, I need like three different pots, and then I need like,
Yeah.
I
Oh
gotta like,
man.
I gotta like sacrifice a pig. Not.
Well, that's fair. No, for me, it's as simple as just freshly cooked white rice and spam.
Oh, nice.
That's
Yeah,
it.
I love that.
And then with like just some spicy vinegar, some spicy suka,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Oh man, I like I put suka like on everything, man.
Yeah,
Like there are days where I'm like, I could just have like suka and rice,
yeah.
and like I'm good. You know what I mean? Like I'll go for like a run. I'll be like, oh, I need something to eat just to like kind of give me some energy. I'm like, yep, suka and rice, man. Like,
Yeah. Did you ever, so I asked because I had this relationship with it, especially when I started fighting and it came to like cutting weight and things like that. But I had a very bad relationship with rice. Like there was at one point where I hated rice and I I like was so far removed from rice where like I think 2 months ago, 3 months ago was the first time I bought a rice cooker.
oh dang.
So it's like I didn't have a good relationship with rice. And then growing up, because I grew up around a lot of West Indians,
Mhm.
I then stepped away from white rice and I'd go like brown rice, rice and peas. And
Right, right.
and then I found it that whenever I was making rice now, I was making it out of a pot as opposed to a rice cooker. And then I had a
Yes.
slight disdain for the rice cooker. I was like, "Oh, you use a rice cooker?
Yeah,
That's lazy." I was like, it was so bad. But like,
yeah,
what's
yeah.
your relationship with rice?
Rice is life for me.
Hmm.
Rice is life, man. And I understand how you feel as well. Like, and th- as a fighter's perspective as well too. Like it's one of your enemies,
Yeah.
really and truthfully, right? But I mean, yeah, for me it was just a common household like thing to have.
Hmm.
And it's not like I'm gonna sit there and be like, oh, I love rice. Just like, oh no, I need the rice with it. Like, you know what I mean? It was just that it's the potato for Filipino people, like
Yeah, yeah,
it's bread for Filipino, it's the pasta for Filipino, right? It's just that added starch for your dish. And there are a lot of dishes in our cuisine that like requires a rice to really have that full experience of that dish,
Hmm.
right? Like I on its own, yeah, great, but without the rice, man, it's just you wouldn't feel complete,
yeah.
right?
What's your favorite way to prep rice, to have rice?
Rice cooker, man.
But in what dish and like what way?
Oh,
Like,
and what
would you
dish?
do you like it as like lugao? Do you like it as just white rice? Do you like it as fried rice? Do you like it in your desserts?
Yeah, I just love just plain white rice, man.
Hmm.
And the best way that I can have like a full like great experience with eating is with the brothy like dishes that we have.
Hmm.
Well, the sinigang, papaitan, you can't have those without rice.
Yeah,
Really
sure.
can't, for me it's just like it's the time when the broth like soaks into the rice,
Yeah.
I'm like, that was like my favorite thing growing up, man. Like sabao.
Mm.
Like,
Just
but
yeah,
that's
just
it. Like,
sabao and
man,
rice. That's it.
yeah, that's it, man. Even with sinigang, like I'll give my family all the veggies, all the meat that's in it. I'm like, yeah, just give me the soup, man.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
give me the soup and the rice, and I'm good, man.
yeah. For me, it's pico.
Biko?
The
Nope.
dessert pico.
Oh, Biko. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah.
that's
Oh,
that's
that's a favorite too. The yeah, sweet rice is also good too,
yeah.
man. I'm
Like
not. I
I
don't
have
have.
such a sweet tooth, so it's like I
Yeah,
like it. Yeah.
yeah. For
Did
me, I
you?
don't have the biggest sweet tooth, man.
Fair.
I've got like my dessert is just more carne.
Did you ever do so the struggle food of sugar on rice?
Sugar on rice? No, I did sugar and butter.
Sugar butter on toast?
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
my jam, dude.
I've done
Like,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh man. But
the
yeah,
rice
like
was
that
good.
was another thing that I did too, was like sugar on rice. And it's like
Yeah.
I look back at it and I'm like, this is why we have gout.
Yeah. Trust me, man. I was all these little triggers that are coming up to me. I'm like, all right, this is why I'm on these meds. But it's funny though, man. On the topic of gout, I love talking about it with like titos, man, because there's one of my titos. I was like, yeah, I got gout now. You got gout? Like it was like a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks. He's like, yeah, I know it does suck. He's like, come over here, come over here. This guy's like showing me his like his medicine cabinet, and he's like,
Oh,
come see this, and he like opens like a closet door. He's like, there's my crutches. I got my wheelchair. I got my cane, and I was like, oh my god, Tito, like what's going on? But yeah,
oh,
it sucks, man. I don't wish that on anybody. I'm not even on like my worst enemy, you know? Like,
yeah. Oh my goodness. It's I
but
don't know how to approach it when speaking with like my dad because he's just like he just kind of shrugs it off. It's like,
mhm.
oh, oh, it's too late. I
Yeah,
have it already. Can't do
yeah,
anything.
that's
Uh,
the other thing about OG Filipinos. That's my stubborn.
yeah.
Like, yeah, that's because even for, like to be honest, like my last gout episode was like years ago, man. Like years ago, dude.
Talk
Like
me through this. What was your episode of gout?
my okay, so it was terrible, man. So the first thing to I went to an all you can eat. I'm not gonna mention the restaurant, but it was one of those Brazilian restaurants where they slice the meat, put it on your thing.
Was
So
it
I
on the
was going in,
rooftop?
man. Pardon me.
Was it a rooftop?
Yep.
Because yo, that all these Brazilian like they cut the
Yeah,
meat from you. It's a rooftop. Like they own all the rooftop
yeah.
restaurants.
That's why. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever, man. So I went in, man, on the beef, everything, dude. And then like I got food poisoning. Like I
Oh,
didn't even get out. I got food poisoning and I was sick for like a week. And then I was like, oh, like I had to go to the hospital, all that shit, and got the meds for it. I'm like, all right, cool. I think I'm finally like I'm done this food poisoning thing. But then I still felt like not right.
hmm.
And then like the one of the mornings, I was like, okay, I don't have to puke. This is great. I stood up and and it was on like the ball of my foot. And I was like, this is gout. I know it. This is gout. Like I didn't have it as many times like before that this particular episode. Okay, this is gout, man. I'm like, I don't really have any meds for it.
Damn.
And periodically throughout the day, like it just starts swelling and then it start hurting. And like the way I explain gout to people, I'm like, feels like somebody stabs you in one of your joints with like a pole. And even like when you think about moving it, like somebody starts like it just hurts, man. And then with that episode in particular, I was out for 3 weeks.
Hmm.
So 1 week with the food poisoning and then 2 weeks with the gout. And like I got to a point where I was like in crutches. I was like, man, I was in so much pain. You put a blanket over your foot and it was like it sucked. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then that was, that was my like I guess like an aha moment. You know what I mean? Where I was just like, I really gotta watch what I eat. Like red meats like just turned me off. Like even beer. Like I haven't drank beer in like years, man, almost a decade now.
Hmm.
Like
Does it flare up easily for you?
for me, those are the two main triggers that would flare up like instantly, which would be beer and steak,
Yeah.
right? And it's like Yeah, it sucks, man. Because
So
well,
you
once
can't
upon a
you
time,
can't have red meat, you can't
yeah,
have fish, so it's just chicken and pork for you.
pretty much, yeah. Well, actually, you know what? The funny thing is shellfish, but
You can have shellfish.
yeah, I just got over that allergy like 3 years ago. Oddly enough, so I can have like shellfish, but I can't have like fish,
Hmm.
right? And it was weird, man. I can have anything that has a shell on it, man. I can eat it,
Yeah.
and I thought it was an amazing discovery because it was only 3 years ago, right? I'm now entering like my 22nd year in the industry.
Hmm.
So discovering new flavors to me, now I'm like, oh, now I understand why this pairs with that
Hmm.
good with like with scallops or like this and that, right? And now it's like it's a new experience for me, which I kind of needed at that time because my culinary like journey was kind of going on a low at that point. And yeah,
Let's dive into that now. So first off, what drew you to say that you wanted to cook for other people?
um, first, I mean, it's the influence of being around like Filipino parties growing up, right?
Hmm.
Like I don't have like a big family, but when we got together, like there was a feast, and and that was what always really brought us together. And the more I grow up going to friends' Filipino parties, we know we're gonna get fed, and everybody, it's the smile on everyone's face
Hmm.
that really drew me to be like, this is something that we should be sharing, right? And my first real like cooking experience was like with my dad. My dad was one who taught me how to cook.
Okay.
I was like maybe like 9, 10 years old, and it was corned beef.
Hmm.
It was corn. He's like, I'm going to teach you how to cook corned beef, and I like till this day I remember every second of his lesson. I couldn't tell you what happened an hour before he started cooking. Like all I remember was in the kitchen with him. My dad's so OG, man. He's having a cigarette, like right under the fan. He's like, "I'm going to teach you how to cook corned beef," right? Like, so he just puts the cigarette down. He's like, "Here's your tomatoes, your onions, your garlic." He's telling me the type of cut they are. You're gonna cut it like this, you're gonna cut it like that. Let me even do like the work as well too, right? He would demonstrate it for me, and I would do right after him on the next one. And it was a great father son bonding moment for me, right? And then he's like, "Did you like it? Did you enjoy it?" I was like, "Yeah, I really like making the corned beef." He's like, "Okay." And like the next day, this guy bought like 4 or 5 different cans of like corned beef. He's like, "Okay, cook it.
Hmm.
So these are all for you." So like I would do it on my own. So it's like I
With
continuously corned beef.
so with that, because you're also adding tomatoes, do you prefer a more soupy corned beef or a more dry corned beef?
I oddly enough, there's this one point where it's just right in between.
Hmm.
That's where I was like, because I've been asked that where we can actually reduce it, where it's like almost dry, but it's still soupy enough. You know what I mean? And if it does get, because I don't like it when it's too dry, but I also don't like it when it's soupy. Like,
Yeah.
and you can always adjust accordingly. Like the secret was, and my dad taught me this as well too. Like, he's like, if it gets too dry, keep the can, add a little bit of water, and like go accordingly to your preference, right?
Yeah.
So and throughout the years from the day that my dad taught me, I've always been experimenting with corned beef, and
Yeah.
as simple as it may be to somebody else, it's like can, but it's just like, no, man, this is more than that, man. This is
Yeah.
like this is what we grew up on. This is my core memory of like my first experience in the kitchen, and
What would you be more eager to grab off the shelf, corned beef or spam?
corned beef 100%.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, but corned beef is like it's just because I have that core memory with my dad as well too.
Gotcha. Yeah. For me, it's
So
spam. I'm more of a spam guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
I got you, and I got some good spam recipes.
But then like this is also something that like I'm trying to turn into something. I haven't started the concept yet, but
Hmm.
like where's my other one? I have two of these just chilling here.
Oh, nice.
And like the concept behind it is something like key to my heart,
Yeah.
but then sell them in pairs.
Yeah.
So then
Oh, that's
there's one for the
amazing.
right. So like that's something that I'm trying to. Would it be a necklace? Would it be like a
Yeah.
yeah? But this is yeah. There's just something special about this key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd definitely be nice as like a pendant. Like
Okay.
yeah.
Everybody talks about inflation too, where oh eggs are getting expensive and stuff. Yo, corned beef and spam. are
Oh,
expensive.
like $13 now for like
Makes no sense. Oh,
yeah.
and it's like, I don't know, you know those memes where it's like, I'm not going to tell you I won the lottery, but there will be signs
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
where, yo, my parents buy corned beef and spam in bulk now. They buy it in a box of like 24.
Oh, that's amazing.
And like my dad's such a hoarder, so it's like there's so much in the basement. And
Yeah.
like my dad has his own sorry store. If I were to like ex however I can explain it, there's like 10 bags of rice. There's
Yeah.
and it's just and now there's stacks of corned beef
Yeah.
and spam. It's crazy.
That's beautiful.
And one thing I want to do as well is like, because I enjoy cooking too, where I want to make like a cooking channel for,
Mhm.
I guess, making struggle foods fancy.
Yes. Oh, dude, yeah, that's something that's been in my head as well too from like years ago.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
what
you
I do with my corned beef is I'll add kale, and I feel like, ooh, I can serve this to white people.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, my dish for the ghetto cooking was I took a pack of ramen and I like smashed like the dry noodles.
Hmm.
I used that as breading for like fried chicken.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I was like, this is balling on a budget right now, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
There's this one recipe that I saw that I'm so eager to try, but
mhm.
it's frying up chicken, but before you fry it, you wrap it in rice paper.
Mm.
And I don't know if it was just they edited the sound when he bit into it, but there was just a crisp to it that I'm so eager to try it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's
Um,
do it, man. Like I said, man, there's no rules in this industry, man. Like
yeah.
it's
Okay,
some
so with that, you say there's no rules in it, and when it comes to fusion and stuff like that,
mhm.
is it like there's too far?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, no, I mean like who are we to really judge? You know what I mean? Like it's you, man. This is your creativity. Remember, it's called culinary arts.
Hmm, that's
Right?
fair.
You know, and not every artist is a successful artist, but they're out there fucking trying.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
fair. Thank you. Thank you for articulating like that because I've never put it in that perspective where, yeah, it's an art.
it's
And
art, man.
hmm,
And no matter what you do, you're gonna get criticized no matter what, man. Like you just got to come to a point where you say, "Fuck it, man."
yeah.
Like, for me, like food is the way I express art,
Hmm,
right? I have a deep passion for like, you know, Muay Thai, for example, is one. I had skateboarding, all the Filipino things, man.
yeah.
Skateboarding,
Yeah.
and food was like one of the top ones for me, right? Like, and that to me was like, I can express myself in all those different categories through Muay Thai, through skateboarding, all that stuff. But I truly found myself with food,
Hmm,
right? And I'm not saying top chef and I'm not trying to be competitive.
yeah.
All I truly want to do with everything that I have in place, being a chef, being a father, being, a Muay Thai, you know, practitioner or student, I just want to be better than what I was yesterday,
I like that.
right?
Fair.
And then that's all it is for me, man. Like even if I'm just 1% better than how I did it the day before, that's the only thing I see. I don't like competing when it comes to like you know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm,
like I do have a competitive side, don't get me wrong. But if I'm trying to master a craft, it's like no, I'm fighting myself. Like and I'm sure like you know that growing up as a fighter as well, right? Like when you get into the ring, like kind of it doesn't matter who your opponent is. It's the mental battle. It's just like you trained your ass off.
yeah.
Now you're in the ring, you're really fighting yourself, right? You're proving to yourself that like all the training was worth it,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of the perspective of how I see whenever I cook. And even if it's not my own, like even if it's at a different restaurant, right? Like if I worked at a different restaurant and it was so systematic, yeah, I can even break it down to like let's say if I worked at McDonald's, right? Yeah, Big Mac can get all around the world, right? But if I'm the one making the Big Mac, my name is on this Big Mac.
Hmm,
So I'm gonna make sure this is the best fucking Big Mac you've ever eaten in your life, right? Even though it's the same ingredients, the same system, everything that's literally every McDonald's has in the entire world, there's something that I'm gonna add my that's gonna make it the best burger,
Hmm.
best Big Mac you've ever eaten, right? That's kind of just my mentality when I'm at least I try to when I'm in the kitchen, right?
Yeah. No, little segue just because you brought it up. But in terms of burgers, where's your best burger spot in Toronto?
Best burger spot? Ooh, Burger Drops.
Yeah.
Yeah, Burger Drops.
Um, I don't know. I haven't found that best spot yet for me here because I was out on the West Coast and in Vancouver. I'll always shout them out when it comes to it, but it's like the best smash burger in my opinion that
Mhm.
I've ever had, period. And I think
Yeah.
the thing that sets that apart is because they use like a brioche bun as well. And
Oh
I think
yeah, yeah.
that just changes everything. And I haven't found that here yet. So it's like, where can I go? But yeah, I've had burger drops. I need to give them another shot because when I
Yeah.
went last time, I already had eaten.
Oh, gotcha.
So I was like, this is just okay, cool. I taste it. Yeah.
Yeah,
But like, I think if I go back intending that that's the spot that I'm going to eat, I think I'm going to have a different experience.
highly recommend.
Yeah. Fair. Um, you were talking, so I think this is a perfect way to lead into this topic now. But with this podcast, whenever I bring guests on, I always talk about their journey in whatever endeavor that they're following, and how that connects to mental health.
Hmm.
Um, and through that, I'm curious to know, first of all, how, as a Filipino and
Hmm.
growing up as a first generation Canadian, what is your relationship with bettering your mental health?
Hmm.
Um, and what things did you have to face when you were in culinary school up to
Hmm.
22 years in the industry? I'm pretty sure like that's not an easy feat at all. So,
No, still challenging, really.
yeah, talk me through that.
Yeah. I mean, first things first, like growing up, in Canada, born and raised here, it was hard because obviously my parents grew up in the Philippines. This is a completely new country to them. So it's not like they can educate me on how life is over here.
Mm,
They're adapting and learning, right? So they're trying to figure out what's right and wrong, what's different from Philippines, what's different, to living here in Canada. We're all learning, and it was crazy because obviously they went through their frustrations, and me growing up is trying to understand what their frustrations were about. Mental health was kind of disregarded, not intentionally, but just like you see like those Instagram posts. There's that one guy, Kylanol Extra. He's like the comedian. I think he's a funny dude.
yeah,
But some of those skits where he's just like, "Mom, I'm going through like mental health issues," and she's like, "Oh, love, love, love," like she's going off, and I was like, "Yeah, it's funny, like, but at the same time, that's real shit, man."
yeah,
And like before, it was just like swept under the rug, and like you kind of impact on it growing up, right? Like I think our generation in particular has that, and me as a father right now, I'm not trying to. I acknowledge like all these little things, and it's not bashing on my parents, but it's just like there were things that kind of like messed me up mentally, not them doing it intentionally to me, but it just messed me up, what they thought that parenting was. Even I don't know what parenting is, right? But I was just like, that didn't make me feel good
mm,
when I thought that it was a right thing to say or do. To project that to my kids now, not like I had a shitty experience, so I'm gonna try and refocus and like see how I can do it so that my kid goes through the same situation that I did. They don't get as fucked up as I did, right? Um, Dealing with it, I couldn't.
mm.
Like, if I'm being honest, man, I couldn't, man. I grew up again in Scarborough, and I think it's hard to explain to people that aren't from Scarborough. But like growing up from there, you grow up a lot faster than you think,
Yeah,
and I experienced some things like a 14-year-old would never experience outside of Scarborough. Yeah, I mean they might, but it's just like it just so happened in my life living in Scarborough. You know what I mean? Like, how am I supposed to trust the police when they just took away my best friend's life,
mm,
right? And it's you don't hear, right? And then there was no like I never took therapy for it, right? And I never like really like dealt with like the whole situation. I still go through like some of those feelings come back to me even now. It was my friend, it was his 20th like death anniversary, and 20th year death anniversary, and for some reason it hit me a lot harder than ever this year, right? And yeah, it's hard, man. Like even with the and then like to follow up with that on the kitchen life isn't a beautiful thing. It is, but like the behind the curtains, man, it's rough.
Yeah.
Like it's rough. Like you'll see shit like on Hell's Kitchen, or like you see people like watching The Bear, and I was like, dude, that's just like the tip of the iceberg, man. I'm
Yeah.
like, you take out all the dramatic music and like the edits and all that. I'm like, no, that shit's like real life, man. I've had chefs like growing up like throw like hot pans at me. You know what I mean? I've had like physical fights on the line, like you know what I mean? And it's people like really like saying some shit to you that really messes you up,
Yeah.
you know, and it's yeah, it's crazy, man. For me to deal with, I don't even understand. Like and like I don't want to say this lightly, you know. I'm like grateful that I'm still like alive,
Oh wow.
right? And I think that was the scariest thing for me because like there's like a lot of shit that I went through, like growing up, like not in the industry, but just also life in general.
Mm.
And yeah, like the mental health, especially on like with men, yes, and to be more specific with Filipino men, like it's hard, man. A lot of people take advantage of our kindness, I find, right?
Yeah.
And this is just my perspective, you know, and people mistaking the kindness for their weakness.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot in general, right? Um, the one thing I am the one thing that really got to me and why I'm still doing what I do and still be happy about like life in general, even though like in the back of my head I know I'm still like a little fucked up. I got to go through all this shit because you know it makes me stronger every single day. It was my best friend Ron, right? Ron Sia.
Yeah.
Uh, you know he had lost one of his family members, and I remember it was like the grieving for me to watch him go through that grieving period because he's always one of the happiest fucking dudes I've ever known. He still is,
Yeah.
right? Um, there's a one point where he got over the grieving period and he was happy. He was like, you know, we went, he's like, yo, let's go skateboard, man. I'm like, yeah, let's go, man. And I was like, yo, like, what happened? Like you're like just the other week, like I knew you were just like down bad. Like, what'd you experience, man? And he goes, look, he's like, nothing hurts more than losing a family member,
Mhm.
somebody that you love, right? He's like, that's the absolute like worst feeling that I've ever felt in my entire life. And he goes, but what I've learned is that, you know, that is the worst feeling that I could feel. So anything that happens to me moving forward, any bad scenario that happens to me, any like bullshit that always came into my life that like where I was automatically like negative about it or I was upset. He's like, when I look at it, reevaluate the situation, and then I go, if I look at this whole situation, is there anybody that's dead right now that I love and care about? No? Cool. That means that there's a solution to this problem.
Mm.
Right. And then he basically said, like, you know, he's like, why the positive feelings that you can have when you come across a negative situation? Because we're so comfortable falling into like the negative feeling. Right? You know what I'm saying? And yeah, and once I took that perspective and like put it into life, I'm like, yeah, all this crazy shit is happening to me mentally, but everybody that I know and love is still alive. My children are eating. I got a roof over the head. You know, it's all gratitude, right? Though that's really been what's keeping me afloat in life. You know, the mental it does need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And you know, I encourage everybody to go to therapy. Right? I encourage people to be more open to talking to your good friends about like things that you're going through, right? Not just like to anybody, but obviously like, you know, your good friend,
Mm.
right? And I think that's another thing for Filipino men. It's just we were raised to be like no, like just be tough, be tough. You can't, man. You can only be tough for so long. You know what I mean? And even
Yeah.
so, I
Is there any point in your culinary career that you were going to say that you were done with cooking, or like
many times,
something happened where you were ready to give it up?
many times, I've
Mm.
even like changed careers. All these different experiences. I'm like, I just ended up back in the kitchen, and it was weird because it was just like that. Not that I was comfortable with it, but that's where I just felt alive. And that's just me personally, not bashing on office jobs or anything like that. This is just my own personal thing, right? And it was like when I worked at the bank, I remember they gave out like these like stupid rewards. Like it was just like just to boost morale, which is great. And then like the award that I won, they were just like, oh, so we want to give this to the guy and he's doing it right now. This is the award for the person who moves so much while they're in their chair. And I'm like swinging back and forth on my chair. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That was like my like day of disgust almost. Okay, I guess I know that I can do an office job, but I can't sit still. Like I gotta keep moving around, man. And that's what kind of drew me back into like what else can I do that makes me move around? I'm like kitchen, man. I like there's something about being on the line and you know what? Even just being on the line, like cooking for a service, like that was kind of like my cure for mental health as well too.
Mm.
Oddly enough, it like gives you the most mental health problems, but it's also the biggest cure,
Yeah.
and it was I can't even like can't really describe it, but it's just like it's the intensity, it's the people yelling at each other, like the fucking, all these crazy things that go on in the back, like at the end of it, and you see everybody eating, you see everybody smiling, like exactly how I felt at the pop-up.
Mm.
And I was so happy the last one that I did, man, because it was an open concept kitchen.
Yeah.
To see everybody take a bite out of the food and smile. I was like, I don't even care how much money we make fucking money right now, man. This is me trying to get Filipino food out there.
Yeah.
This is like, and if I can share it by like sharing my dishes that my parents made for me to the masses of Toronto in general, I'm like, and to see them smile about it, like it
Yeah.
was so like my heart was melting that day,
And
man.
where were you, and where you were stationed too? It was cool because like you saw everybody enjoying it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a beautiful like on a high, man. Like
Yeah.
I was on like I've done so many pop-ups where I was like, thank you everybody for coming, blah blah blah. Out of all the mistakes that I've made in the past, now it's just like it's gotten better every pop-up, and this one in particular, like was like this one of the smoothest ones I've ever done.
Nice.
And it even like gave me an opportunity to like go out and meet and greet the diners,
Mm.
like my friends that came, my family that came, like
Yeah.
funny enough, man, and I don't even want to mention names, but I even had some haters come to my pop-up.
Nice. Sick.
And like word got around and like hey, I didn't even care, man. I didn't even give a shit. But it was just funny to me. It was funny, man.
Yeah.
I don't feel anyways, but it was just
Yeah.
like, oh, so and so came here because they wanted to see you fail.
Mm.
I was like, no way. And I was like smiling. They're like, yo, aren't you mad? I was like, no, I think I'm really happy about that because the entire night everybody was giving me the best compliments and
Yeah.
I had zero haters.
That's cool. That's awesome.
I was like, why didn't I say anything to them? Like,
Yeah, yeah. That's funny. Oh man.
great,
My
man.
only critique about that night is I couldn't get any halo halo.
Oh,
I was like, this is great and all, but why can't what do you mean I can't get halo halo? This is
yeah, man. Wasn't the night, man. Sorry, X
oh
man.
man. It was like, oh, it's not on the menu. Oh, interesting. Fair. This is gonna get a bad Yelp review. I was like,
No, like desserts, I've tried to like elevate that shit too, man. Like, I don't know if you saw the Bunso page, but I even made shout out to Chef Caroline from Asuka to help me really design it. It was my homage to like my Filipino Canadian side.
hmm,
And I made, you know what Joe Louis are, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I made a Ube Louis.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it was just, a little homage to like, Canadian snacks, but to my Filipino side at the same time. And
Yeah.
yeah, dude, I think it was a beautiful thing, man. I got to relaunch that for the next pop-up so I don't get a bad Yelp review.
You mentioned that in the world of like mental health, and you brought up the bear and how
Mhm.
it's just the tip of the iceberg. So, it being the tip of the iceberg, was it enough for you to sit down and watch, or was it not enough of the iceberg for you as a culinary expert to enjoy?
Oh no, I enjoy the show a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah, I binged it in like a day and a half, man.
Yeah, yeah,
It's funny because you have your other chef friends here that are like, oh my God, like it's just like it's corny to some other chef friends of mine.
yeah.
I was like, who cares, man? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the last couple of years, like mind you, if it was like if the Bear came out like 6, 7 years ago, I'd be that guy to be like, oh fuck these guys, they don't know shit, right?
That's funny.
Who cares, man? I'm like, these guys are portraying like a life that we've lived already, or still living.
Hmm.
Like, and if you were to look at it in a positive note, like, it can give people a deeper insight on how we really are in the kitchen.
Yeah,
That every kitchen is exactly like that, but a lot of kitchens are like that.
yeah, for sure.
And I like how they show like, from like the ghetto restaurants to like the fine dine restaurants, and it's all like similar experiences, similar problems that we all go through. Shows that it's a passion driven industry and it's and like a career. It's not a lucrative one.
Yeah,
We don't make shit in the kitchen, right? And that was another thing to touch up on mental health, man. Like I've jumped from like restaurant to restaurant, and even like my wife, man, she's always like, why do you keep like going to different restaurants? We have a family, we have this, we have. I'm like, it's so hard to explain. You know what I mean? It's just like you have to take into account of like everything, man, like the late hours or like even like the long hours, right? There are days where like I would work like 14, 15 hour shifts, and that was like a normal thing. If I work like an 8 hour shift, I'd feel like it's like a part-time job,
yeah,
right? And but there's where it sucks because you work 15, 16 hours a day, and like the money that you come in or the money that you take home, it's like not even half of like what an office guy would make.
yeah,
Right? Even within our industry, man, and every position in a restaurant, I respect. Everybody has a significant role to make sure that this is a successful business. But even servers, man, servers, it's a hard topic to talk about, but it's like they're either minimum wage or a little bit less than minimum wage, but they live off their tips,
hmm.
right? But then, like there are the odd times where I've worked at restaurants and the chefs get tipped out as well too. All the cooks, we get tipped out like weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the company. And then some servers will be leaving with like 400, $500 cash the same night.
Yeah,
One night they'll be like, oh, I had one guy, he was like, he was talking to another server and he goes, oh man, I only made $350. Meanwhile, we're like all in the kitchen, like we're dying from like the heat. We're working like 10, 11. We're there before them and they leave before us. And like they're upset that they made $300, but then like when we get our tip out at the end of the week, our tip out's only like $217, $220. It was just like so whatever you made it one night. It was, you know what I mean? Like again, I still respect them. Everybody has a significant role, but if I'm speaking in terms of like one of the things that triggers like mental health for people back a house is the financial part.
yeah,
Right? As much as I love cooking, man, it's hard to make money, especially when you have a family.
yeah,
Right? And the only really way to not become lucrative, but just to become like I guess like have some good flow of like income. It's either you own your own spot or you find like, a really good restaurant gig, but you have to like really put in work
hmm.
to get that spot, right? There's a lot of places where like they don't even care if you like went to school for culinary, like they want to look at experience. If you're straight out of like culinary school and you're trying to go for like a chef graduate, they're gonna laugh at you. They're gonna put you in dish. Like, you know what I mean? Like I I've seen it. I've experienced it, man. I've been in like interviews where like at the time it was like, 8 years experience versus a guy that's like more educated than me in terms of like what he knows in terms of like culinary and all that shit. But he just graduated, never had any kitchen experience. The chef chose me, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a weird industry.
Yeah. Damn. No, that's interesting though too. Um, and with that, what was your parents' opinion on you pursuing this? Is because I've had parents for sure they didn't enjoy what I was doing. But then it's like you have parents that are like, oh, you're studying anything that's not, oh, you're not studying to be a doctor, you're not studying to be, because you also use the word art. This is a culinary art.
Yes.
It's a hard thing to admit and say, but a lot of Filipino parents just aren't supportive of their children going into the arts professionally.
Yes.
Is that also in the same realm with the culinary arts?
You know what? For me personally, it wasn't. Like
That's
I was thankful enough that my parents like they were just something that I was like really passionate about, right? And yeah, I got a lot of support from them and I'm super grateful for that. And they do like obviously like as parents they worried,
mm,
because there are the times where the job or like this and that. And my dad never like forced it, but he was just like, maybe you should try like a more secure job.
okay.
You should like this and that. At least you'll have a pension plan, you'll have this, you'll have that, XYZ. But I don't know if it's my pride or if it's like my art, but I'm just like, no, like I have to do this. Like and it sucks, but I have to. Like and this kind of ties back to me being as a parent now as well too, right? Like, our generation, we see our parents that did that route of like going to school, get good grades, get a good job, blah blah blah. But then, they get stuck at the job.
Yeah.
Oh, one of the things that stuck out to, and then this is kind of just like an ongoing battle that's still going on. Like my aunts and my titas used to tell me, like, oh, your dad, he's like the smartest one out of all of us, right? He's the smartest one, but he just never like. It's not that he didn't apply him. It's just like he got comfortable like being at one of those jobs,
Mm,
right? Where it's just like, oh, look, I'm secured, I'm good,
yeah.
right? And it's just like, yes, my dad is a happy guy, but I'm like, for me, if I were to put myself in that position, I wouldn't be happy, right? And our generation as well, being a parent in our generation as well, it's you want to be a good role model for your kid, right?
Mm,
I don't want I kind of want to break that pattern for me personally, right? I opened up Bunso with the intention of like showing my daughter I went for my dream, and
mm,
my dream is to share my food with the people, right? Whether it fails or succeeds, because really and truthfully, man, like Bunso is just like I'm not coasting, but I'm striving to make it whatever it is. I'm just going, man, and I just want to show her that you can go for your dreams.
yeah.
Whether you fail or succeed, I want you to go for it.
Mm,
Right? And I want you to see like the struggle. I'm more communicative with my daughter. Mind you, she's only like 6 years old, but she's a smart one. like, And I even have like another project. I have like another catering company that's in the works right now. Still working out a few of like, some of the ideas and all that stuff. But I named it after her. And, and it's like SEVYN, like the number seven, but spelled obviously different. But yeah, and it's just revolving like the philosophy of like pretty much just like how it is as a parent, right? This is it's weird how I kind of relate it to the industry as well too. I tell people I'm like, look, I'm like, you can't tell people what to do, but your responsibility as a parent is to guide them to make the right decisions on their own, right? And then when I start preaching that, I was like, shit, that's almost like the kitchen. Like now,
yeah.
the generation before when I was growing up, you had to do what you were told.
Yeah.
The new generation of cooks, you got to really adapt to how people think nowadays, right? And it's just like you can't tell a person this, this, and this. Like but you can guide them. It's to make their own right decision, right? Everybody wants to be independent. Cool. They still need guidance, but how can I communicate it in a sense where like I'm still teaching you, not telling you what to fucking do? Like hopefully that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah. No, I like
Yeah.
that. Um, Last thing is I wanted to touch on we talked about it earlier, but I guess the rise of Filipino food
Mhm.
in just modern society where
Mhm.
do you think it's is it our time? Is it Filipino food time to or is there another, I guess, food that's getting the spotlight first before us, if that makes sense?
Hard to say. Like for me personally, I think Filipino food is on the map,
Yeah.
right? Because like I said earlier, we have such a wide variety of different dishes. It's hard to really break through that barrier.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes it even gets sidetracked where like people are going to be like, oh, you know what? Maybe we'll make, something Filipino, but just not Filipino. Like we'll put it in like a burrito or something, or we'll put it like we'll put like adobo in a burrito. Or don't get me wrong, man. I don't knock that. I'm a victim of that as well too. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's just like if maybe if there's like a one like set thing that we can do to break through that barrier, whether it would just be like traditional Filipino food just served as is.
Yeah.
I think we're so close to it that people just need to get more educated. And even myself, I'm still I'm still learning to be Filipino,
Mm,
right? And I don't like it's funny because I can speak Tagalog like fluently.
mm.
And people are always like, "Oh my God, you speak so." I'm like, "Yeah, but you understand, if I ever go to the Philippines, I get eaten alive. Like they're gonna hear my Canadian accent, right?"
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's and then yeah, dude, there's something I don't know. There is like a certain blockage that's hindering us from becoming that top cuisine.
Mm,
And the people that are successful with Filipino food, and my hat goes off to all of them. I'm like, they're out there like really wall down.
yeah,
I'd firmly believe that we're almost there. I
yeah.
don't think there's any other cuisine that has the spot that we have.
Because like I find I'm seeing a pattern too where even in social media where everybody's kind of seeing Filipino food more. And like for example, you had Blue's Clues where
Yes.
you had that highlight, I can't remember what the food was that they brought on, but then there's another show called The Wiggles and like they're bringing highlights to different foods and stuff like that. And like
Oh,
it's growing and I find there was I don't know who it was, but it's a Japanese chef and he made a dish and he I found it really interesting that he called it an ube dish versus
right.
a taro dish.
Ah, so was it a taro dish or was it?
But like ube and taro are both purple yam.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's like I feel like there's just because ube
Yeah,
is in,
yeah,
I feel like that's what led to that decision of like, oh, we're gonna call it an ube thing versus a taro thing.
yeah. Sorry. The vendor comes. Sorry, this is my. Say hi, everybody.
Oh, adorable.
Sorry,
Um,
gotta get ready. But I can still be on the phone.
yeah, yeah. Did you, so also being from Scarborough, um, did you know, so are you familiar with like dasheen and callaloo?
Dashing and Kalaloo?
Yeah, they're Jamaican.
No,
Jamaican
I'm
dish.
asking in that tone and not.
But I learned that that's actually it's the same thing. So ube is the root and then laeng is the leaf.
Oh, Latin. Yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry. Yeah, yeah.
But then now in the West Indies, you
Yeah.
have dasheen, which is the root, and callaloo, which is the leaves.
Ah, okay.
Right. So it's funny where it's like I was a huge lover of dasheen and callaloo and stuff like that, not
Right.
knowing that, oh, that's just ube and lying. Like it's
Mind blasting. Yeah.
man, it's such a weird thing.
Yeah.
But other than that, I had a thought that I wanted to end on, but like I'm blanking on it. Jolly Bees.
Hmm.
Are you how like I'm blown away by it, but
Hmm.
Jolly Bees started as ice cream.
That I did not know.
Yeah, like the
I
founder,
had no idea about it.
it was an ice cream like shop. It was an ice cream like stand. That's how Jolly Bee started.
Right. I had no idea.
Yeah, and now they sell everything. Like it's
Yeah.
the weirdest model in my opinion. Like what do you mean you have fried chicken, rice, and spaghetti?
That's hilarious. I actually never knew that. Does it have ice cream right now? No, it doesn't,
And they
right?
don't even, yeah, they don't even have ice cream.
Like, I was like, do they even have it? But no, man. Like, yeah, I'm speechless. I was like, oh, he said Jollibee's sweet. I fucking love Jollibee. Their fried chicken, you know?
Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. Jolly Bees over Popeyes every day.
No, yeah, hands down, man.
That's so funny.
Yeah, my
Uh,
apologies. Sorry,
other
my
than
phone's
that, do
sorry.
you have anything that you wanna say to the people? Do you have any advice, any stories, any last lingering words of wisdom?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of Filipino food, if you haven't tried it, try it.
Mm.
And like I said earlier, as much as I hate the word fusion, like that's what Filipino cuisine is, man. Like
Yeah.
and that's a reason why we have such a wide menu of like different items and all that stuff as well too, right? Like and it's share the story. Like,
Yeah.
share like with your to I want people to fall in love with food the way I did,
Hmm.
right? And it doesn't matter what cuisine it is. Doesn't matter what it is, like figure out the story, figure out your love story with the dish that you enjoyed so much, and it'll help you appreciate food even more, right?
That's good.
Um, yeah, it's crazy, man, and it's almost like it's when I was also in like sales, like it was just something that I've learned and incorporated here, which is facts tell, stories sell, right? And it's true, man. Like if I can break down every single dish that I've had on my menu, like I always find the story is way more significant than the actual dish itself sometimes, right? And then that goes for other like chefs as well too, other successful chefs that I met.
Yeah.
Well, people's common questions are always like, "Oh, what's in this?"
Yeah.
My question for all the other chefs when I try something amazing, I'm like, "What's your story behind this dish?"
Hmm.
Right? And when you hear that, it gives you such a more like higher appreciation for it.
I love it.
It doesn't even have to be at like a high-end restaurant, right? You can go to a mom and pop shop. What made you think of this?
Yeah.
What was the creative idea? What was the story behind all of this, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's like the common story of like, oh my grandma used to make them. I think that's a beautiful thing, man. It's like you brought a core memory of food into fruition that other people can now enjoy. Like they can, and if they know the story behind it too, it makes you feel like you're a part of that journey as well,
Yeah. Love
right?
that.
Have a higher appreciation. Yeah, have a higher appreciation for food, right? Next thing, I mean, come to the next Bunso pop-up, man.
Other
We're
plans for that?
yeah, we have a food truck event coming up next Saturday. I believe it's at Boulder Park
Yeah.
in Scarborough. They're gonna have an event. You can definitely check that out on their Instagram. We're gonna be operating out of a food truck.
Sick.
And then yeah, if you ever if anybody out there wants like a Kamayan at home experience, I go to your house, give you the Kamayan experience. We set it up, we clean it up. It's all gone after. It's like we're never there, you know. But we do that. Private dinners all around, man. My main goal for Bunso is not to be the best Filipino restaurant, but I just want to introduce the cuisine to you, right?
Love that.
Give you the flavors that I grew up on, and like hopefully you can expand from there. And I'll even tell you where to go to
Yeah.
have all these great Filipino experiences in the city, right?
No, that's
But yeah,
beautiful.
that's just my goal, man. I'm just trying to break down that wall for all the other ones that are trying to get out there, you know.
Yeah. Sick.
But yeah,
Awesome. Chef
but yeah,
Hiram.
next
Salamat.
man.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Uh,
appreciate everything.
No doubt. Everybody, thank y'all for tuning in the 2 Degrees podcast with our special guest today, Chef Hiram from Bunso, Toronto. Check him out. Food's amazing. I'll vouch for it because I've had it, even though the halo halo wasn't there. It's cool. It's all right. But check him out.
It's a
Thank
2-star Yelp review.
Thank y'all for tuning in. And again, 2 Degrees live happening every second Wednesday in Toronto. Please check that out. Other than that, y'all, mag-ingat kayo.